Thanks for attending our retailer roundtable, where entrepreneurs share their secrets to building powerhouse businesses in uncertain times. This webinar is moderated by Allison Yee, who is the founder and CEO of UpNext, a Newton-based business that facilitates pop-up retail experiences among emerging brands and property owners. Allison is a Charles River Regional Chamber Director and Chair of the Real Estate Committee's Retail Subcommittee. This webinar is brought to you by our sponsor, Direct Federal. Now, without further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Allison.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. We have a really fantastic group with us this morning. I am first going to introduce our opening speaker, and thereafter we'll introduce each of the panelists. So Jesse Baerkahn, welcome. Jesse is going to kick us off with a state of the industry talk from his perspective. And for those of you who don't know Jesse, he is the president and founder of Graffito SP, which is a Boston-based retail real estate advisory and investment firm specializing in retail real estate development, neighborhood strategy, urban design, and branding. And Jesse's multidisciplinary background and work at GSP combines his transactional training as an attorney and broker with lessons learned through other entrepreneurial endeavors and strategic investments in the real estate, small business development, and entertainment fields. Jesse has been working hands-on with restaurateurs, retailers, artists, makers, and other creatives in various capacities for over 2 decades, and is an outspoken advocate for real estate development strategies that embrace localism and experimentation. And I am all for that. So Jesse, I will let you take the reins. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Allison. So you saw the cover page that mentioned uncertain times. So it's a hard moment in time to give a state of the industry on retail, but I'm going to do my best. And the reason it's a hard moment is, things are changing really, really rapidly. So I'm going to try to spend a few minutes talking about what that means. But first, just want to ground this introduction in my perspective and the world that I see from my seat at Graffito, which is looking at this from the landowner developer perspective. And you're going to get an opposite perspective from the panelists as actual retailers, and their perspective is probably even better than mine. But because Graffito and our partners and our clients are looking at this from the landowner perspective, it's really on us to spend as much time as we can trying to become experts in understanding the retail industry, trying to understand the pressures on shopkeepers and owners, and trying to get some visibility into what's coming. And that's really hard right now. The one thing I can say it's been really interesting in our work is that, and I think foundational to some of the remarks I'm going to share, is that we've approached the landlord-tenant relationship as a partnership, right? And that's been really significant to our MO. So diving in, where are we at right now in retail? Exciting time, challenging time, but ultimately, I've talked a lot about the retail industry over the last couple of years, and it's been almost all dominated by talk about the pandemic. And that's actually not what we're going to talk about, or at least what I'm going to talk about today. I believe, and Graffito believes, we moved into this post-pandemic moment as related to retail, which doesn't mean the public health crisis is behind us. I think we all know it's not. We all have friends and colleagues and staff that's out because people are still testing positive. And many of the challenges we're seeing now and opportunities are pandemic spurred, but we are not spending our time with tenants, with landlords, with partners, talking much about the pandemic right now. We are spending time talking about staffing challenges, cost of goods, lead times on FF&E, construction pricing, and then ultimately this kind of highly fluid and unstable market that we're dealing with in retail. And what all of that is doing, and you may hear about it a little bit today, is that there are a bunch of disconnects. And one of the main disconnects that we're seeing that I think is really important for all of us to understand, whether or not, we're retail owners or elected officials or, real estate developers, is that the fluidity transcends to kind of the connection between revenue and profitability, right? And that's something that we're trying to grapple with as we look at many different P&Ls for restaurants or yoga studios or art galleries, or service providers, is how do we re-understand profitability as a product of revenue, and how do we make investments in retailers and real estate that kind of promotes long-term sustainability and viability in the long term. And the truth is we haven't figured it out. But I think this instability has forced many of us, I'm sure many folks that are listening in, to learn a lot more about the challenges facing small business owners and learn a lot more about the retail industry than we probably knew several years ago. When I hopped on the call, Linda and I were the first ones on a little early. I kind of made a statement that I wanted her to validate. And the statement was, I bet your business changed more between 2020 and now than it did between 2014 when you opened in 2020. And her answer was it did. And, my gut is, maybe Rob and John can speak to this. I assume they've seen tremendous change over the last couple of years in a way that they probably haven't seen that level of change in a couple year period in the history of their business. And John's family has a long history operating. So I'm curious to validate that assumption. So, the other thing I would just highlight, and we're going to move into kind of quickly some of the reasons to be super optimistic, because the story I've just shared isn't one that is super optimistic. And again, I would just kind of put a pin in staffing as being something that we're really concerned about in the Boston area and is touched by housing costs, transportation costs, all these big picture items that I know the chamber is super interested in. But everything in retail right now is kind of hyper context specific. And the pandemic has largely taught us this. What we're dealing with in Massachusetts is really different than what folks are dealing with in the retail industry in Florida. And frankly, I would say what we're dealing with in a place like Newtonville, where I live, is really different than what downtown Boston is dealing with 5.5 miles away. So I think all of this is very context specific. So the exciting part about all of this is that it's created a tremendous amount of opportunity for those retailers and entrepreneurs that can bake flexibility and can bake pivoting and change into their business models. And the reason that's so exciting for us at Graffito is that it's the small local owner operated businesses that have a tremendous advantage in adapting to change, tremendous advantage. And one of the things we're seeing is that the regional and national chains, frankly, just aren't able to pivot and move as quick as the locals. And I think that's an exciting thing for our communities. Our whole kind of thesis in terms of investing in real estate, investing in neighborhoods is supporting local operators. That's why Allison mentioned, I'm glad it made it into my bio, kind of our emphasis on localism. And I think that's a very exciting thing and something that we should all be talking a lot about and be advocating for as a community. I think the other things that are reason for great optimism I would just put out there would be there's a lot of pent up demand right now we may hear about from some of the panelists for things like entertainment, travel, gatherings, celebrations. There's been a tremendous amount of change over the last couple of years. So here we go, talking about the pandemic a little bit, changed the way people shop for their pets, changed the way people furnish their homes, just changed the way people engage in their homes. And, John, I'm sure it's also changed the way people dress for work. So again, for those businesses can adapt to that, tremendous opportunity. And again, I think that drives back to local businesses. The last thing I'd say that I think is really relevant to this group is that we are seeing a tremendous shift in retailer demand that in greater Boston area has moved from areas of high commercial density concentration, so places where pre-pandemic there were a lot of workers, to areas that are densely populated from a residential perspective. And I think that's creating a lot of opportunity for Newton and Needham and Wellesley and Watertown. We do site selection work and real estate kind of work for Tate Bakery and Life Alive and Clover, 3 food service establishments that 4 years ago were hyper focused in the urban context and today are very much looking in the communities that we're all from. So I'll leave it at that. We're really excited about the future. I'm really glad to be with you all. I'm actually very much looking forward to listening to our 4 panelists today. But Allison, I'll kick it back to you to introduce the team. And thanks everyone for giving me the 6 minutes to yell at you here.
Thank you so much, Jesse. That was illuminating and a great transition into what we're doing here today. So I have the pleasure of introducing our 4 panelists. this is a roundtable format, very conversational, very open, and I'm excited to hear from each of you to better understand not sort of the crisis mode that we've been in with the pandemic, which we have done roundtables throughout, so we've really heard what has happened over the last couple of years, but sort of where we are in present day and how this evolution has influenced your businesses going forward. So I'm going to do some brief intros and then we'll get into the Q&A. Linda de Valpine is a retail professional with more than 30 years of experience in both retail and wholesale environments. She is the founder and owner of Greentail Table, a specialty shop focused on modern and inspired tableware and gifts located in Newton in the village of Nonantum since 2014. So thanks for being here, Linda. Rob Van Sickle. Rob is the co-founder and one of the owners of Polkadog Bakery, which started as a single store in the South End in 2002. And as an English major in college, opening a specialty dog treat business was not listed in the career brochure handed out on graduation day. But despite its inauspicious beginnings, Polkadog has expanded to 8 retail locations, including one hyper-locally right here at the street in Chestnut Hill, a 14,000 square foot manufacturing kitchen located at the Boston Fish Pier. And Polkadog sells its homemade branded products around not only the country, but the world. So they're expanding globally. I'd like to welcome Weslie Pierre. Weslie is the founder and head plant stylist at Wesleaf Designs and Decor, which is a plant studio based in Needham with a growing presence all around Greater Boston. Weslie is a second-generation Haitian immigrant who fell in love with all things plants at the height of the 2020 pandemic. And Wesleaf's focus is on biophilic design, this is new to me, which is the practice of connecting people and nature within our built environments and communities. Their mission at Wesleaf is to bring the beauty of nature indoors while equipping you with the knowledge and tools to care for them. So thank you, Weslie. And last but not least, we welcome John Airasian. For over 80 years, Eastern Clothing, located in Watertown, Mass, has been filling men's closets with quality clothing, including many custom pieces. John is a graduate of St. Anselm College and has worked alongside his father since the day after graduation in 1999. John is the 3rd generation to run Eastern Clothing. He operates the store daily and is very involved in the buying of goods. So thank you all very much for being here. I am going to kick us off with a question about each of your businesses' evolution over the past couple of years. So how would you characterize, this word's, got a bit of a reputation now, but how would you characterize your pivot during the pandemic? What major shifts have you made to your business model and daily operations? And which of these do you see becoming permanent changes? Linda, if you wouldn't mind speaking to that first, I'd appreciate it. And then please feel free to bounce around your thoughts.
Okay, certainly. Thank you. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate your attendance today. I would say we were fortunate to be able to pivot. We opened in 2014, as Allison mentioned previously, and we're growing along just fine. And then we hit 2020, took a little hit there. And fortunately, we were in a position where we had a website already in place. And we were easily able to then sort of, transfer over to, while the store was closed, doing deliveries, curbside pickup, which was, we were doing it a little bit on our own via the website, but then we had a change in the structure. We used Shopify, and they made it very user-friendly to be able then to sell to our customers, and they were able to do curbside pickup, or we could deliver to them, and that just really made all the difference. I think what was critical to our success, because we survived and then thrived in 2021, which was our best year ever. And I think really that only hinges on the support of our amazing, loyal customer base. They really just showed up. They showed up online. They showed up at the curb. They were waiting in line when we had limited store capacity. And I think that just being able to pivot and meet the needs of them, when they were spending all this time in their homes. They were looking for home accessories. They were looking for bowls that weren't shipped. They were looking for runners and tablecloths and linens that they would enjoy using and not feel embarrassed about using on a daily basis, as they were spending so much more time. And then, you know, adding beautification, vases, candles, that type of thing. So I don't know if I answered everything, Allison, but anyway, I hope that gives you a little bit of flavor in terms of how we transitioned, and you know, happy to report that you know, our customer base stuck with us, and here we are on the other side, at least for the major part of the pandemic.
Thank you so much, Linda. And is that in contrast to anyone else's experience? Weslie, I know you started during the pandemic, so you were able to be nimble from day one, I suppose.
I did. I actually kind of wanted to follow up in the home beautification process. My business majorly started out of that because I was home so much more. I decided to just, you know, decorate my house with plants and like feel nice about it. And the more I shared that on social media, whatever joy I was exuding, people wanted like a dose of that. So it turned into people asking me to set up their home gardens and their plants in their home so that they can feel closer to nature and grow their own vegetables and all that. So definitely I relate to the fact that people being stuck at home made them want to make home a happier place to be. So that's definitely a big part of why my business started and did really, really well during the pandemic. That's
fascinating. Rob, do you want to talk to us about pandemic puppies that are staying?
Sure. I had a follow-up question for both of those folks, but I'll get back to it. I'm thinking as they're talking, but like Linda, we had started a home delivery website sort of randomly in like February before the pandemic started. It was just a stroke of luck, right? We didn't plan to do it. It was just something that we saw as an opportunity because we had 8 locations around Boston. We thought, you know, similar to the other models of other businesses, why don't use these locations as little warehouses across the city? So we had a website. It was a Shopify website as well. But then I went away for a trade show to Florida and came back, and, you know, I mean, all these things, thinking back on it, you know, you get lucky, I guess, or I don't know. But we had moved a location out of our kitchen space to the Pierre because they needed more space to a warehouse in Norwood, just totally randomly. And then 2 weeks later, the city was shut down. And so when our stores kind of went like this, the home delivery business went like this. And it, you know, and then there was shortages of products, and people were hoarding things, just like toilet paper and paper towels. Dog food became this weird like commodity, and so our distributors got smashed and nobody had product. You know, I mean, it's just like one of those things that Jesse alluded to earlier. Because of our size and because of, you know, we still sort of have control over a lot of parts of the process. We were able to kind of shift and move around pretty quickly throughout, right? And, you know, you skate by and you kind of make do. But I agree with an earlier sentiment that people wanted a place to feel like something was normal, right? And for some reason, the dog community kind of soldiered on there, and having a retail store where people could come, you know, was a place that it felt like the world hadn't totally fallen apart. So yeah, and the pandemic puppy thing, I don't, you know, who knows, right? It's just, I'd never expected it. I hope that it's a sustainable trajectory. Not for business so much, just for people, if they start going back to the office and the dogs are left out of that equation. But I feel like people have become more responsible in terms of pet ownership and that in that regard as well. So hopefully it doesn't, hopefully the pendulum doesn't swing back and, you know, sort of erase a lot of that. But
yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
John, you might have had a slightly different perspective here, but in terms of your product mix, you know, were you bringing in loungewear? Are you bringing in more casual clothing, and is it here to stay?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was just such a strange time because, you know, in the clothing industry, you get all your spring and summer goods start coming in February and March. So we had really a loaded full of inventory of things. And then all of a sudden we were told that we had to close, and we didn't know how long that would be. So it was pretty disconcerting. But to answer your question, yes, we've definitely shifted and brought in some more casual stuff. But having said that, with all the weddings that are going on, because they all got canceled, we're seeing a huge influx. I mean, we're selling a ton of suits, so that's still driving the business. But once this settles down and kind of comes back to a normal level, everyday workwear is definitely more casual. So we put a lot of money into that. But yeah, it's been a wild time, because you saw that shift with all the Zoom meetings and the, Zoom appropriate attire, things of that nature. So, you put some money into that, and then you come out of the pandemic and there's all these celebrations that are happening, and they want to dress up for it. So you got to kind of go back to where, our roots really are. But to Jesse's point at the beginning, we're a small business. It's my father and I that are the owners. There's two people making the decisions, and we can, we're pretty nimble, and we can turn on a dime. And, we were able to do that and come out and be, as busy as we ever have been.
That's really good to hear.
Allison, can I follow up with a question for Linda and Weslie? I was just gonna, when you were talking about how people were spending more time at home and sort of like doing, investing in that space, right? Do you find that as people start to return to the workplace, that trend is still continuing, right? Like that people are still investing in the nest part of their world, and is it changing more with regard to like entertaining? Or I'm just kind of interested in it, because I know we did at our house, there was sort of like the shift of how we were dealing with our space, and I feel like it's maybe even heightened since then. So, it hasn't sort of, it's kind of like, continued to sort of, I don't know, I'm just curious about that.
I think for myself, I knew that people they were going to need help taking care of all these plants that they took in. That was my mindset around it. So now, because they're going back to work, they have even less time to take care of the plants. So we're pulling contracts where we're going into homes once a week, some homes twice a week, to take care of this mountain of plants people have taken in. And whether it's guilt that they carry, or they've grown this love and attachment to the plants, they now cannot take care of the plants. So that's where my business is even like going further, where we're going a lot more service based, where people are now going on, now they're like, okay, I need to go on vacation, I'm gone for 11 weeks, or people that are now going back to traveling. So they need someone to then go in to take care of this influx of plants that they have. So for me, it's still on the up and up, because I'm in like, not only did I set up the business to put plants in your space, I evolved it to now providing the service on the tail end when you can't do it anymore. So that's been like a constant for me, if not like, it's way more now that everybody's traveling. So I've had to like hire in a whole new team of people that their entire schedule is going into homes through Wellesley, Newton, Needham. We have people going to the Cape because people set up, they were in the Cape for a long time, set up all these plants there. So we have a team going to the Cape every couple of weeks to take care of plants. So for us, it's been really good.
I'm glad to hear that as well. I think it's, I'm echoing that as well. We actually are seeing a continued trend of people, purchasing. A lot of people made house purchases. They moved to further out. They have more space, or whatever the situation is. But they're definitely buying more for their home. Maybe they bought a second home during this period. They realized they wanted to spend some time, if they're flexible in their work environment, and they wanted to be on the Cape or whatever. So we definitely are finding that people are still, beautifying their spaces. And then also, as John was saying, people are starting to get married, and we're been, again, not that they weren't, but they're getting married a lot this summer. So we are definitely benefiting from, registries, engagements, wedding, and then hostess gifts. People are seeing their people again, which is great. And so that I see that continues, and people are so happy to be able to gather together again. Just any kind of gift, like I'm seeing my friend, I haven't seen her in a couple of years. She's here from San Francisco, or that kind of thing. So I feel like, that definitely is still continuing in a positive direction for us.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks, guys. It's interesting.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and turn to employee infrastructure. So can you tell us a little bit about your teams and how your company's cultures have changed, or how you approach hiring and employee retention, given the competitive state of attracting talent and perhaps expanding your businesses? Rob, do you want to share that first? Speak to your team.
Sure. I mean, we're between our manufacturing facility and our stores, we're close to 100 employees now. I think, one of the challenges, well, there's a lot of them, but one of the ones that is sort of always kind of front of mind for me is the geography is it makes it very challenging for me to get around and kind of keep eyes on everything, right? So we have 8 locations in the kitchen, and while they're not, hundreds of miles apart, they are far enough apart that it just is very, very difficult to sort of strategically manage checking in on people. And so, that part of it, in the past, I would be much more involved just because we had 2 or 3 stores and I could kind of revolve around and sort of keep eyes on everybody. But, it's kind of been feast or famine for us in a lot of respects. And I don't think we're unique in this, but at the height of pandemic, we had to shorten our hours and we had 1 person per store for the entire day. So our staff was extremely lean. And you sort of run the calculus every day of the human element of putting people in harm's way there, and some of them live with their parents, and so there's a lot of that kind of hand wringing that went along with it. And then as that changed, and we started to bring people back or hire new people, then the sort of next wave happened where it became a real challenge to find people that wanted to do the work, right, and wanted to show up and didn't. And look, it's not easy. It's not easy work, but it's not complicated, And I think I've tried very hard as a business owner and as a human being and a parent and all that stuff to create a work environment that's pretty accepting and pretty loose, probably to a fault at some points. But it's been a challenge. I mean, we've done in-store recruiting, we've done things on social media, we've done Indeed, we've hired friends of friends. I can't tell you the number of times we've had interviews with staff, maybe 2 interviews, they accept a job, and then the day one comes and they don't show up, So I think Jesse is extremely on point. Like for us right now, staffing is trouble. It's really hard to kind of keep people motivated, keep people around. I do think when we find the right group or to find the right fit, it tends to last. We don't have much turnover, I would say. So that's kind of a blessing. But it is a specific person that wants to work around dogs all the time and retail all the time and be on your feet all the time. And, we have the added benefit of most of our customers are generally pretty happy. They're with their dogs, they're having a good time. So, it's not like the person at the airport when you lost your suitcase, it's not that kind of a burnout, but it's different because it's a lot of repetitive work, stocking, restocking, answering the same questions, and I think for some people that just gets to be too much. But I'm rambling now, but I would say it felt for a while like it was getting better, but I would say in the last month or so we've had sort of another dip where a bunch of people have bailed. Whether it's the end of school coming up, we have a lot of students, and so they disappear and go off to wherever they go off. So I think we're in kind of another lull here, but we've had to get way more aggressive with wages, with benefits. And look, it's not something I'm upset about. But the fact of the matter is there's not a whole lot of margin on a bag of dog food, so it can only support what it can support, and then you have to sort of start thinking of other ways to get creative with how the business remains profitable, right? Because if it doesn't remain profitable, nobody has a job, including me, and I can't afford to let that happen. So there's a balancing act for sure, trying to run lean while not overworking the people that are dedicated and committed to the cause, trying to maintain not so lean that you sacrifice customer service, because most of the stuff we sell people can buy at Target, 7-Eleven, or certainly on the internet, So it's a challenge. but I'll let other folks talk about it. I don't need to hold up the whole show here.
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. Please, anyone chime in. I'm actually very curious to hear other perspectives and any interesting benefits that you found effective to attract talent.
John, did you want to go?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I somehow am on the, I don't want to say I'm like so surprised to hear that. I've just had a completely different experience in terms of staffing where I have all these people that want to work and I'm like, I don't have enough stuff for you all to do. So I don't know if it's how niche like what we do really is, because people who love plant care, like they'll take care of their plants and want to take care of more plants. Most of the people that work for us are full-time professionals.
Wes, we lost your sound for a minute. Try to unmute again.
Did I just mute myself so you didn't hear anything I said? Good. There was
We lost you.
so
You said most of the people who work for you are full-time professionals.
yes. Okay. So yeah, most of the people that are with us are like full-time professionals, like with like real big girl and big boy jobs. So it's very interesting that they chose, we don't have any full-time positions available. I'm like the only full-time person. So a lot of the stuff we do is super part-time and super per diem. So I don't know if that is what the allure is for them. So we've managed to take in a lot of people and make it a more seamless kind of scheduling method. So we have certain days a week where certain services happen and you only have to do what it is that you enjoy to do. So we have retail associates, we have plant care technicians, we have designers in training. So whatever it is that you want to do, that's the only thing you have to do. So I think it's very different from like their regular jobs where they're required to do parts that they don't actually enjoy. So we have definitely taken in people that are dedicated to do it. I've literally never had anyone call out in our 2 years, which is wild to me, but it's also so part-time, like, what are you calling out for? But we make it very flexible. I think just personally, I've had so many I've been in so many toxic work environments that are fully driven by like, we live in a capitalist society. There's a lot of just like general, just like white supremacy stuff that goes into like how we function. And I think I have done a really, really good job of taking in all like these bad experiences I've had working in these places, and I'm making sure my business is not that. So I've had nurses literally saying, I don't want to be a nurse, like working with you, I don't want to be a nurse anymore. Like left the field and said, I want to do this. So I had someone, I did end up taking her on more time, but she was like my virtual assistant. She loved that work and basically started a whole business doing virtual assisting for other businesses. So I think in making sure I prioritize my people, their needs, their wants, when they come to work, they're fully invested and therefore can give their 100% to clients, because I can't give my 100% out to all the clients, but I can like make sure that my staff feels loved, feels seen, feels listened to, feels like when they give feedback that I'm reacting to that feedback, therefore they're super dedicated when they're there. And then I also share about like what we do a lot online, like what we do as the job, what it looks like, what it feels like. And I think people are really drawn to that and they want whatever it is that is going on. And it's generally like a fun work environment, at least I like to think it is. And we kind of live the job out loud and make our clients part of our day-to-day work. So we've had clients that have wanted to work for us. We've had people that have said, oh, you did a project for my friend. Her plants look amazing. I'd love to learn how to take care of my own plants. So I'd love to work with you to learn. So it's just been this really just awesome fluid thing, but somehow, some way we haven't had issues with hiring. We've had issues with trying to find enough hours for everybody because we don't take every client, but that's just, I don't know if that's helpful to anyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here too. I mean, we're a really small business. I mean, it's myself, my dad, a woman, Anna, who's been here for 40 years. And then we have 2 tailors. one of which that's been here for 45 years. So we're very small, we're very lean. Between the three of us, my dad, Anna, and myself, we can handle anything on the floor as far as selling, but we're always looking for a tailor. They're so hard to find. It's a dying art, unfortunately. The two that we have are amazing, and we're really lucky to have them. Like I said, combined, I think they've been here for 65 years. So we try to take care of them as best as we can, but they work hard. Rob had just touched on being overworked. I think a lot of times we all feel like we're overworked, but the tailoring job is a difficult one, especially when you're as busy as we are. And so if anyone knows of any good tailors, send them our way.
I'll just briefly say that we're very small. Oh, sorry. We're very small, and we have, mostly part-timers and myself, and we have been fortunate to be able to pull from our customer base. So that's been great. I am nervous about staffing up for fourth quarter this year. Hopefully, maybe we can pull from our customer base again, but I am a little bit nervous about that. And that's just basically our 2 cents there.
Thank you all so much. Such varying perspectives, but all, so relevant to what's going on in the world. Let's talk a little bit about those customers and the community response that you've been receiving. We've talked a lot through the chamber and beyond about buying local, and we've seen an incredible level of support, particularly in the restaurant space, but also with local retail. So is there anything that's happening with that conversation with your customers that you see sticking? Is this something where there has been this new commitment or rededication to supporting local and away from kind of the big box environment? John, I think you might have some anecdotes on this front that you'd like to share, but you're all welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question there's been a shift. We've been in business for 85 years. So we've gone, through ups and downs, but the loyal customers have been amazing. But in particular, it was starting before the pandemic, to be honest with you. People were really starved for a little more personal relationship and service. They just weren't getting it in my industry anyway. They just weren't getting it at the bigger chains, and they felt like they were overpaying. The quality wasn't there. The service wasn't there. So there were several factors that led to that. But we continued advertising throughout the pandemic. We redid our website. We had a marketing team come in and do some social media stuff. So it cost money and it was scary. But at the same time, I told my father, we have to let people know that we're still here and that we're not, we're going to come through this. And, when they need something, maybe our name will stick. And it really seemed to work. But having said that, coming out on the other end of it, there's absolutely no question that people prefer to come to a place where they can park out front, come in the door, see me or Anna or my father every time that they come here. We know what we're talking about. We like to think that we know what we're talking about, and we can offer a real service. And they appreciate that. We're not pushy. We give advice, and we really help them through what they need it for, all the way to the end. If there's an issue, they're talking to me, and we're going to resolve it. So that's what people are looking for. They're willing to pay a little bit extra, I feel like, to get that level of service. And when somebody's walking out the door thanking, they just paid me for a suit and the sport coat and 2 shirts and ties, whatever, and they're thanking me, it's like, well, thank you, because, you just came and supported a local business, and, we really appreciate that. And our community has been fantastic. So I'll let the others speak on that, but for sure, local businesses is thriving.
I love to hear that. And Jesse offered some great comments in the chat as well, because this is something that we do not see going away, but we need to keep reinforcing and building on If anyone else would like to comment on it, please do.
I'll take a stab. I definitely want to echo, people have just been coming in the door throughout the pandemic, and it continues now. Just, they either familiar with us, want to continue supporting us, shop local. I think that really was drilled into people's beings, especially I know the chamber was really terrific about getting the message out, as was the state during the height of everything. And so I think people that's their sort of their first reaction is they want to shop local. We've had a lot of new people come in who've done like a Google search, looking for like local gifts, in Newton or Watertown or wherever. And then they come in and they tell us, I was looking to shop locally and I found your shop. I just, put in this in the search engine. I found you. I'm so happy to find you. And we offer obviously personalized service, gift boxing, et cetera. And so I think people really appreciate the opportunity to come and be surprised. We change things all the time. Our customers will be like, "Ooh, what's new? What's new?" And I think that's nice. People are maybe so tired of shopping on Amazon. And if you're looking for a gift in particular, and you don't know what you're looking for, Amazon or being online, just searching isn't really going to be helpful. So I think if you're looking for a chance to come in, support something local, come and be surprised. And people feel a sense of pride. They're so happy to have the option to shop locally and to support a small business, especially, maybe they lost their favorite restaurant during this period, and they're nervous about the changing village or city or town where they live. So they definitely feel compelled, and I think it will continue, hopefully, to think local when they want to shop.
Thank you. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about expansion and growth. Have you actually expanded or grown your businesses during the pandemic? John talked a little bit about taking a stand with the website. Have you expanded storefronts? Have you done pop-ups? Have you taken on new opportunities that may not have arisen a couple of years ago, or that you may not have taken a bold stance on? So I'm curious to hear, as an entrepreneur, an owner, how this has emboldened you to take risks or changed your mindset in any way. Weslie, why don't you speak to that first?
I knew you were going to make me go. So I started the business at home because a lot of the work would happen on site. I didn't need a space for that to happen. But as winter approached, I quickly realized that I can't move tropical plants long distances in the winter. It just wouldn't be good for the plants. So I started making like these succulent designs that people can have in their home. They're smaller to move. They could ship. They didn't ship well, but I wanted a space where they could like show. I had reached out to a plant store. They gave me advice around, if you want to do something like this, you'd want to go to a place that there's not plants, try to connect with a gift shop or something like that. Then that same plant owner, I guess, had dropped my name in the ear of some boutique on Newberry Street. And that was my first pop-up. And that was in February of 2021. And I haven't stopped popping up since, pretty much. So February, I did like my first pop-up. So I just popped up with like a table in a store. And that business had 7 other locations throughout Wellesley. They had one in Maine, one in New Hampshire, and I popped up at all their locations. In April, I popped up at Bow Market. I can't exactly describe what Bow Market is, but it's kind of like a shopping space. But I had a store there for 4 days. Then I opened a pop-up, I think a month later, and that was like an every Saturday and Sunday situation in Cambridge. And then I accidentally found UpNext, and I opened my first retail location in, April? No, June. It was June of last year. It was Juneteenth of last year. How do I forget that? So June of last year, I opened my first location that was supposed to be a pop-up for 3 months, ended up getting extended to another 3 months, and somehow I'm still there. So that was our first permanent location. And even in between that, we never stopped popping up. I think popping up is literally the only way to run a business for me. At least I don't know if it's my ADHD. I don't know if it's just, I don't believe anything is certain. I like moving. I like bringing, the way my business works, I can't really stay in one space and wait for the customers to come to me. I kind of go to the customers, and this is why we have so many people working with us. So in Needham, our stores only open Saturdays and Sundays. I found that the less we open, the more people come. It's a weird psychological thing. So because we're open on Saturdays and Sundays, people prioritize. Those are the only days they open. So we make it a point to come those days. Monday through Friday, we do services, and we're popping up in different neighborhoods. So we were doing a ton of pop-ups in the Seaport at the different residences, like right in their lobby. So I'd have a team that would go out Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and we'd be at the different luxury residences, literally just popping up. We had our designs ready to go, told people about our services. So in that space, they were not only purchasing the plants that were in front of them, they were asking for more customized things. And then they were like, I'm opening a new office. The company I work for is opening an office in this place. We'd love for you to do plant design service there. So it's like threefold. We opened another pop-up right now that's in the Seaport, really right across from Polkadog, because there's a Polkadog in the Seaport, right? Am I bugging out? Yeah, right next to the ice cream place. I saw it the other day. So yeah, we're at the Current, which is like right across from where Polkadog is, right in the Seaport. So we're there May through July. And when I tell you, I feel like popping up is like, if you haven't tapped into that market yet, do it. Like you can do it with literally any business can do a pop-up, like any business. So I have like connects that people are considering that, but I really, really, truly believe and love the pop-up model where it's like, I have a standing place that if you ever needed something specific, this is where we live and I got to go find my people. So that's been great for us.
Really interesting. Rob, with 8 stores, obviously I'm a true believer in pop-ups, but the right balance, it really depends on the business. And so Rob, I was curious, with 8 storefronts, did you open any of them in the last couple of years, and have you been considering expansion on that front?
Yeah, so we opened Hingham in, I think it was March 1st of 2020, but we'd signed a lease way before, right? So we were open for, I think, 7 days, and then the world came to an end. So that was interesting. We actually opened Dedham, I can't even remember now, it's been a year maybe. So we had sort of 2 stores in the works when the pandemic happened, and Dedham was pushed out a little bit. The Legacy Place location was pushed out a little bit just because construction delays and so forth. But yeah, I mean, we have done pop-ups. We continue to do some at like farmers markets. We also do a lot of work with some of the high-rise buildings in the Seaport. We'll do like a treat tasting, that kind of like sort of more community building type stuff. Not really selling per se, but sort of just getting the brand out in front of people. With the density there, it makes a ton of sense for us. Our kitchen's there, we have a store there. So it's a pretty low lift in terms of getting out in front of customers. Farmers markets are great. That kind of stuff has always been really kind of like a win for us, just because people that are there generally are our customer in a lot of respects. In terms of expansion past where we are, I mean, there's always some irons in the fire. I feel like after doing this for 20 years, we've gotten a lot better at our store design, our product mix, the size of what we can really realistically manage. And I hear so many, I read so much and hear so much about how the death of retail, and all these things. And I don't, maybe it's just us, but I don't feel that way. I've never felt that way. And I don't believe it. So, when the right opportunity comes around, we sort of consider all things, right? I think we've got a pretty repeatable model now. Part of me is hesitant just because of the headaches. I alluded to it earlier. I don't like to feel like things are out of control. And I feel like that a lot of the time. So adding more, adding another, it's just like kind of adding kids, right? Like the difference between 1 and 2 is a lot. The difference between 2 and 3 is like a lot, and I know because I have 3. So but maybe at some point you get this like level and you kind of like can figure out how to operate at that hum. but yeah, I mean, we always are considering looking at new opportunities. And I think that the opportunities are kind of presenting themselves as the world continues to evolve here, right? Places that I wouldn't have considered thinking of putting a store are all of a sudden like, wow, this is a really interesting, neighborhood or spot. You should look at that. And it's like, huh, I never would have considered that. But now that whatever's happened there, it's changed, and it's become this lively thing that we might want to be a part of. I think for the one last thing, I think is that our brand, what's always interesting and kind of exciting to me is that when we opened Hingham, well, we'll go back. When we opened Linfield, it's not far from Boston. And we'd been in Boston for, I don't know, 10 years at that time. It was amazing to me how many people so close to Boston had never heard of Polkadog Bakery, right? And the same thing in Hingham. Like, we'd been around for 15, 18 years, and we opened the Hingham store and people were like, I've never heard of this before. And Dedham, right? It's like you realize how much the city operates in its own perimeters, right? And so when I see that, I see tons of opportunity, right? Like, there's so many of those areas that still don't know about Polkadog. And if we can continue to provide the right mix of products and service and shopping experience, I think there's opportunity for us to continue to expand.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to add to that? We're running a little short on time, so we're gonna wrap up shortly. But John, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just, we're a one store location. We've thought about it expanding, but I think that from our point of view, it's what we offer the customer. We can do it here. I don't know how well we could do it in other locations. We're in a kind of a quirky place in an old factory building. So it's kind of like the customer enjoys driving to the top of the hill and being like, whoa, there's a suit store here. I mean, it's a residential area all around us. And, I feel like they enjoy that. And we're kind of like that diamond in a rough type of thing. So, we have thought about maybe opening a different location, but where, we feel like we can just service the customer better with where we are and really be hands-on.
So yeah, it's so unique to each business, but it's really interesting, where you want to strategically channel your growth, right? There's so many different avenues. So as we wrap up with sort of that in mind, is there anything really creative that you have done over the last couple of years, or that you've extracted out of this whole experience that you think could translate to other businesses? Are there any sort of words of wisdom you'd like to impart, or anecdotes to share? It's a tricky one.
I don't know if it's creative, but I would just say, obviously don't take your customer base for granted. And I think there's just ways to, try to keep them excited, to keep them coming back, build those relationships, because that was just so important. I can't emphasize it enough, and how grateful we are for all the customers that we enjoy today and who supported us. So I feel like, obviously, cultivate those customers. They're important.
I think I found that sharing how we do what we do is really attractive to customers. A big part of our work in the retail space is teaching our clients to do how we do what we do, even though they're paying us to do it. Often people won't go to the step of actually doing it on their own, but seeing the process, I think, makes people understand the quality of the work, why they pay what they pay. So that can look like showing the tailoring process, what that looks like. It can show how products are manufactured. So having them watch how we repot plans, how we make our design, and all the thought and skill that goes into it makes them more apt to understand, okay, they're very thoughtful. This is how they do what they do. They love what they do. And I think clients are really attracted to that.
We do have one question in the chat that I'd just like to offer up. Is there any organization or group of small retailers where you can share best practices, tips and tricks, etc.? This is from a small retailer with minimal prior retail experience. It would be nice to talk to others to see and learn and share experiences. So quick plug for the chamber, we do run the retail subcommittee as part of the real estate committee, and we are looking for sort of, we're a newer subcommittee, finding our purpose, anchoring in the community, and seeing how we can best be supportive to the local retail community. But if any of you have other groups or resources that are growing, you know, please feel free to share that, because it is really important to have an infrastructure and a support system among the local business community.
I was just going to say, I attended a networking event a couple of nights ago with Cambridge Local First, which is open to other communities. And it was really just a wonderful meeting of the minds, retailers, makers, just about how to support one another. The topic actually was like social media, which is helpful. We're always trying to figure out like what to do with this, how to make it work for our businesses. And it just was, I found it to be a very supportive environment. And so that's one I can think of right off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Sorry guys, I dropped off there for some reason. I don't know. California internet doesn't work very well again.
Welcome back. Yes, Rob is joining us. It was bright and early this morning.
Fabulous Laguna Beach. Yeah.
There. No, I just wanted to say thank you to this group. I have learned so much in the short time that we had together. You know, would love to continue the conversation offline and continue to grow the Chamber's retail community as a resource for everyone. So thank you very much to each of you, and to Jesse for joining us. And with that, I'll pass it over to Maxim to wrap up.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you to all of the panelists, including Jesse, for this insightful webinar. I want to give another shout out to the Charles River Chamber Real Estate Committee, and again, our sponsor, Direct Federal, for making this webinar possible. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks all. Take care.